My name is Erin Haldine, and I'm the CFSS policy lead here in the Disability Services Division at DHS. And we are all happy that you're here for another Implementation Council meeting. So we'll start today just kind of going through our list of who's on the home care and self-directed team, and then provide some information regarding our different providers, our recent PCA or CSG extension period. We'll talk about our CFSS information sessions that are coming up. We'll go through a couple of new documents and resources, and then just a review of our office hours, available resources, and any future Implementation Council meeting dates. So here is a list of the individuals that currently make up our home care and self-directed services team. So our manager is Mary Leonards, and supervisor is Janine Wilson. And then myself, CJ, Meredith, and Rebecca make up the rest of the team. So I solely work on CFSS, but everybody else on this team has other duties as well. And so you may see our names in different emails or different meetings that we're in, but we're all part of the home care and self-directed team. So as most of you probably know, but is important for everybody to understand if you're new to attending our Implementation Council meetings, is that these meetings are were put in place and are required by the 1915K and within our state statute. So we are required to have these meetings on a regular basis. We're also required to have a majority of the members of the Implementation Council be people who are using services themselves or are family members of people using services. The rest of our members consists of PCA or CFSS provider agencies, FMS providers, lead agencies, and people from managed care organizations. Now, we know that there are several others who listen into the meetings, but these meetings are technically for the Implementation Council members, and so that is what makes up our member group. A few meeting reminders before we get started is we really want this to be an engaging and interactive meeting. We want the Implementation Council members to provide us with feedback or talk about different ideas. And so we will, if needed, we'll solicit comments from our Implementation Council members, and then we ask that those members be able to comment or write information in the Q&A first, and then if time permits, then we'll go through some non-Implementation Council member questions. Feel free to put questions in the Q&A. And then again, just remember that this is an Implementation Council meeting rather than a training on CFSS. So we offer many, many trainings, which I'll go through in a few slides, that are to learn more information about CFSS, but this meeting today is really for us at DHS to give them Implementation Council an update on what we're doing and allow them time to ask questions of us. So our CFSS agency providers, nearly all PCA agencies have now become enrolled as CFSS provider agencies. We know that took a little bit longer than anticipated, but at this point, I think anybody who is going to transition over from PCA to CFSS has done so. So you can actually find a list of our CFSS agency providers by going to the MHCP provider directory. And I am just going to show you a little bit about what that looks like. So you can see here that we have now a tab for Community First Services and Supports. So you can go ahead and click there. And then let's just say, let's see, here we go. Okay, so now we have a list of all of those CFSS provider agencies here. And there are, I don't know the number off the top of my head, but a large number, nearly 900 or so. So you can go ahead and see who has been enrolled as a CFSS provider agency. And then currently we have 17 enrolled consultation service providers. So again, those providers, the consultation service providers, you can actually find them on our consultation services provider webpage. And we have 17 here. And you can Under the organization, you can click on each link to go directly to their webpage to find out more information. Otherwise, their contact information is listed here as well. Okay. So like I just said, we currently have 17 consultation service providers, but we just recently opened the consultation services RFP again, and we've had a lot of interest, which is great. So the first round of proposals were due to us by August 29th of 2025, and we're using the month of September to evaluate all of those who submitted a proposal, and we'll notify the successful responders by October 31st of 2025. And it looks like we'll actually notify some of those responders sooner than October 31st. So the good news is we actually had 132 organizations submit proposals to us. So that is obviously a large, huge increase from our 17 providers that we have today. That will take us quite a bit of time to review all of those proposals. And then once those responders have been selected, those providers will need to become enrolled, and then they will need to go through a training period on CFSS and being a consultation service provider and how to bill for their services, et cetera. So at this point, we likely won't have any of those providers up and running until early 2026. But we will try to go through that enrollment and training process as soon as possible. Likely we will do them in kind of smaller batches rather than training all successful responders at one time. So hopefully we'll get organizations through as soon as possible. We'll work really hard to get that done. So since the last time we met, which I believe was in June, we did decide, or DHS leadership decided, that they will approve an extended transition period for people that are currently using PCA or CSG for them to transition over to CFSS. So what that means is that everyone has to transition to CFSS by September 30th of 2026. And that date really applies to everybody except for those who are using the alternative care program. Those individuals who are using alternative care must transition by March 31st of 2026. Okay, so what that means is that lead agencies are going to enter a 6-month service agreement with those extensions. So they'll enter an additional 6 months of CSG or PCA. And I'll review a little bit more about that on the next slide. So we sent out two e-lists went out at the end of July, one on July 22nd, and then another on July 25th with more specific instructions on how the transition period will work. So if you didn't see those e-lists or you are not aware of this extension, you can go ahead, once this PowerPoint gets published on our DSD training archives page, you'll be able to click on the link to review those e-lists. And we're currently working on updating all of our materials to reflect these new dates. Okay, so with the extension, what this means for people is people who are being reassessed between October 1st of 2025 and March 30th of 2026. The process will be if a person's using PCA or CSG as of their first assessment occurring on or after October 1st of 2024. And for those of you who are not familiar with the dates, October 1st of 2024 is the date that CFSS began. Okay, so if those individuals have not yet completed the transition to CFSS by their next assessment, so those coming up here on October 1st of 2025, the lead agency will authorize 6 months of PCA or CSG and 6 months of consultation services while the person continues to work on transitioning from PCA or CSG to CFSS. Then for those individuals that are being reassessed between April 1st and September 30th of 2026, They don't necessarily get that full another 6 months of services. So if they're transitioning between, or if they have a reassessment between that time period, the lead agency will authorize PCA or CSG through September 30th of 2026. And then they'll also get 6 units of consultation services while they're transitioning to CFSS. So what that means is every person, regardless of when they have their reassessment over the next year, must transition to CFSS by September 30th of 2026. Okay. And like I said a couple minutes ago, that really applies to everybody except for those who are on the alternative care program. So people who are using alternative care must transition by March 31st of 2026. Okay, so while all waivers have until September 30th, alternative care has until March 31st. So this affects about 250 or so people. And DHS is not going to open the 1115C waiver to extend that deadline past March 31st. And so that is a hard deadline for people using AC. Okay. What we will be doing, though, over the course of the next few months is a representative of DHS is going to be contacting all individuals who are using alternative care by phone, and they're going to notify them of this transition timeline. We really want to make sure that everyone is aware that there is this earlier transition date. So they're going to be talking to them by phone, explaining the deadline, explaining the steps to get transitioned over from PCA or CSG to CFSS. And so if you know somebody on alternative care or using alternative care, or maybe you are a person yourself or working with someone using alternative care, know that we will be contacting all those individuals. Okay. So one thing that DHS is doing to try to help people get through the process of consultation services, or to understand the difference between PCA and CSG and CFSS, is we're creating CFSS information sessions for individuals receiving services. So what we have found in the past year is that we have a really good outreach to all of our different provider types as well as lead agencies. But it has been a little more difficult to reach individual people who are either interested in learning more about CFSS or are eligible for CFSS and have yet to get started. So what we've done is we're working with a consulting group, and we've designed CFSS information sessions to work in partnership with our lead agencies to help people and their families learn more about the CFSS program. So we hosted 2 pilot sessions. They were pretty small. We did one in July and one in August. And we currently have 3 in-person sessions scheduled with 3 different lead agencies who express interest to us. So we will be going out to those we'll be going out to those 3 lead agencies to do in-person sessions where they will be inviting people eligible for CFSS to come in and learn more information. We've also developed a recording that we're going to provide to the different lead agencies. So that recording has been done. We're just working on some editing, and then that will be given to the lead agencies who express interest. And then what lead agencies can do is they can choose to host meetings themselves. They could choose to give links to individuals so they can learn more on their own, or really they can do whatever they'd like with those recordings. But it's really a way for us to be able to just get more information out there for people assessed for the service. So with all that information, it's important to know that lead agencies are not required to offer these sessions, and people are also not required to attend. So it's only another way for us to get information out to people, to allow them more time to learn the information about CFSS and their service delivery plan and what those requirements are. But it is not required for any lead agency or any person. Okay, they can still just contact a consultation service provider and get the information that way as well, if that's how they would like to start. Okay, one other thing that DHS is doing is we have created a new form called the 6893U, and it's the information for people eligible for services. And I'll just go ahead and click on this link here and share what that looks like. So this is a new form that should be given to everybody who's eligible for services. It will be given to them by their assessor. And we just published this in the middle of August, so it's still really new. But it's really just going through the steps for a person so they know how to get connected with a consultation services provider and kind of what those next steps are to start CFSS. So I won't read through all of these, but you can look at it on your own. Again, it's the 6893U. We do have links on the form. We also have QR codes if someone would prefer to review the information that way. But it just basically gives them the list of consultation service providers, and then tells them they need to contact a provider, notify their lead agency, work on selecting a model, an agency model or a budget model, and then develop their service delivery plan. And remember that a person can begin working on their service delivery plan before they meet with a consultation service provider. They're not required to wait until they meet with their consultation provider to start. So if someone wants to start on that early, they certainly can. Consultation would still need to review the plan and submit it to the lead agency for approval, but a person can begin working on it earlier if they'd like to. And then just the different steps to then actually start CFSS. So that is a new document that we are hoping will help people just learn a little bit more information as well. We have also published what we're calling CFSS mid-year changes grid or document. And it's really a table that will help lead agencies and providers understand what the steps are for different changes that can occur throughout the year. So as you probably all know, a person develops their service delivery plan at the beginning of the year, and within their plan, they determine if they want to use all of their units or dollars for personal care, or if they want to use some of those units and dollars to purchase goods and services, or set aside funds for PERS or other items. And so we were getting a lot of questions from both providers and lead agencies on what to do when someone wants to change their plan throughout the year. And does that need to be reapproved by the lead agency? And how does the service agreement get changed, et cetera? So what we did is we designed this grid that we're hoping will help people understand. So we have a column here that is regarding the change that could occur. So this first example that I'll show you is just if somebody asked to move dollars or units between personal care, goods and services, or PERS, and their FMS fee. And so then we have a column of what does the consultation service provider have to revise the plan? Does the county or tribal nation need to approve the plan? Does the county or tribal nation need to complete the 6893W, which is the lead agency addendum? Does the county or tribal nation need to revise the service agreement? And then a column on what action needs to be taken by the provider. And then what resources somebody can go to learn more information about that particular change. Okay. So I won't go through every single change that's possible, but you can see that there are many. This is quite a long page. So an example, if somebody wants to change models, what is the process? If somebody wants to add a CFSS provider agency, let's see, changing a PERS provider. So anytime a change occurs, the consultation service provider, the lead agency, the FMS or provider agency can review this page to learn about what steps are needed depending on the type of change that's being requested. Okay, so right now we have this particular page published. We are working on a page that will reflect the process if the person is using an MCO. So you can watch for that to come out in the next couple weeks. We continue to hold our CFSS office hours regularly. So we've been holding the office hours since September of 2024, so a year ago, and they've been at different cadences throughout the year. So we started out doing them often, once a week, and then it switched to every other week, and now we are holding office hours once a month for the different groups. So we're doing CFSS provider agencies, and those are held in a Q&A format. So if we at DHS have any updates, we provide it at the beginning of the meeting, and then we just open up the rest of the meeting for those providers to ask questions, and then we will answer all the questions that we have time for. The same format for consultation service providers. We do a Q&A format, and that's held monthly. And then for lead agencies, we're doing a little bit different. We're providing all of our updates, and then we're also choosing a topic of the month to review. What we've asked lead agencies to do is to select, 2 or 3 or a small group of people within their lead agencies to become like CFSS experts. And so we want the same people to be attending each month from the lead agencies, and that we would review, kind of go more in depth about a certain topic each month. And then they can go back to their lead agencies and disperse that information to everybody else who's involved in CFSS. And then, of course, if there's questions or time at the end, then we allow time for questions. And then the FMS providers, we're also meeting with monthly, and that is just a Q&A format. And that meeting is actually organized by the FMS providers. So they invite us to those meetings and provide those questions to us so we can answer. And then these last couple slides are just resources that are available for everybody. And so these are resources that are available for lead agencies. I won't go through all of those because you'll have access to these links once the PowerPoint gets posted. Again, more resources for lead agencies. And then we have resources for people and families. And again, this is our new one that we published just recently, the 6893U. That's the information for people eligible for services that we reviewed a couple of slides ago. And then we have resources for the different provider types. So FMS providers and consultation service providers, as well as provider agencies. And then our last slide here, and then I'll go to the Q&A. We have just one other meeting that's scheduled for 2025, and that's on December 9th. It's going to be held virtually again from 10 to 11 a.m. If you are a council member, you were invited by invitation. That email invitation went out in May. That's when we invited you to all of the meetings for 2025. And then once we have those 2026 dates scheduled, we'll go ahead and send out another email invitation and post an e-list for others to join the meeting as well. So I am going to pause for just a minute to take a look at what's come up in our Q&A. And Janine and Meredith and anyone else on the call, if you have read them and you have something that you'd like to answer, please go ahead and do so.
So this is Janine. There's a question about a link to the recordings that you were talking about, but I'm not sure if we have them linked yet, if they're still being developed.
For the information sessions?
Yes, I believe that was when the question came in.
I don't think to my knowledge, I don't think that they're 100% ready. The recordings have been done. I believe that they are going through an editing process, but that the plan is to have them posted very soon. So I think within a couple weeks, you'll see it. I only see one question in here that has not been answered. And Janine or Meredith, I guess, do you know where they could find the provider MPI other than MMIS? I don't believe that's published anywhere, is it?
I don't think so. I mean, Meredith, you may know better, but I think MMIS is where you end up having to get those.
Okay, I see a question that says, can we go through the process for those who have CFSS? So I'm assuming that you're saying they are currently using CFSS, so they've already made that transition. Okay, good, thank you for confirming. So for somebody who's currently using CFSS, so either they're newly eligible or they've already transitioned from PCA to CFSS, and then they'll be renewing after 10/1. So they'll be reassessed for CFSS. And that process really is the same as any renewal. So we have worked, we've had conversations in office hours with both lead agencies and consultation service providers that they really need to work together to make sure that there isn't a gap in service for those individuals. So the FMS providers and CFSS provider agencies are required to submit a referral for reassessment to the lead agencies 60 days prior to the end of the service agreement. Okay, so the end of the current CFSS service agreement. And within that time, the lead agency should be scheduling a reassessment, and then putting those, or the results are then in MinChoices for the consultation services provider to access. Now, we know that that's a really quick turnaround, right? And that consultation service providers are busy. In a perfect world, someone would have their reassessment done right away. Consultation service provider would work with the individual to develop their service delivery plan and have that plan approved before the 60-day period is up. Now, but we know that sometimes it's hard to get a hold of individuals, or the reassessment is delayed a little bit for some reason. So what we've done is we've asked consultation service providers to also track those dates, and that they should begin working with the person on developing like a draft service delivery plan, so that a bulk of that work is already completed for the renewal. And then when the person's, when MinChoices, when the new assessment is in MinChoices, that they can then just go into MinChoices and review those results and edit that draft plan as needed, so they can get it into the lead agency as soon as possible for approval. Okay. Now, it is important to know that if the plan is not developed and the plan isn't approved by the end of the person's current service agreement, there will be a lapse in service because CFSS begins the date of plan approval. Okay, so we've really asked consultation providers, both provider types as well as lead agencies, to work together to make sure that this happens. It's in everybody's best interest, of course, to let people know, people receiving services know that this is a requirement. They've got to work with their consultation. They've got to get this plan developed and in for approval before that 60-day deadline, so there isn't that lapse in service. Janine, is there anything you want to add about that?
No, we do have one hand up from Clyde.
Oh, okay. Is someone able to unmute? See if I can.
Yes, 1 minute.
Okay, thank you.
It looks like he lowered his hand.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Oh, there you go. All right, Clyde, you're unmuted.
You hear me?
Yeah, we can now. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. So, being a council member and, living with somebody that has a disability,
Mhm.
and also working in this with CFS over the last year, I have some pretty serious concerns about the service delivery plans.
Okay.
What I'm seeing in my professional work is it's just copy and paste from the Min Choices assessment. So it's getting to, it's really when you look at it, it's a waste of time. If they're just going to copy and paste what we put in our assessment materials, what is the purposes of having consultation?
Okay, that's a good question. So I'm going to answer two different pieces to it. So first, consultation service providers, they can copy and paste some of the information from the Min Choices assessment. Not all of it will be copied and pasted, but there's parts of it that can be. And the reason for that is we don't want individuals who have already, kind of talked through them, already had to go through the process of explaining themselves to an assessor, right, or tell their story over and over and over again with all the different provider types. So if there are portions that a consultation service provider can take from the assessment, we have told them that that's okay to do so, but they need to ask the person if that's what they would like done. If the person does not want it taken from the assessment, or the person says, I would like to add this, or I want to provide more information, then the consultation service provider should be doing that, because we want the service delivery plan to be a plan that reflects what the person needs and the services that they're asking for, right? And then to answer the second part of your question, what's the purpose of a consultation service provider? So this first year, I think most people, are still making that transition over to CFSS. And so really they're probably have limited exposure to their consultation service provider and have just been working with them on that plan development. However, consultation services does have, or that the provider type does have, a lot of other roles that they need to do throughout the year. So for example, if a person wants to make a change to their service delivery plan mid-year, the consultation service provider is going to make that change for the person. So if someone wants to change providers, if they want to add a good or service, if they want to move dollars around, something like that, they're going to work with their consultation service provider to do that. They're also going to work with their provider to renew their plan at the end of the year. So they're going to help them develop their new CFSS service delivery plan each year that they're using the service. If a person has questions throughout the year, they should be going to their consultation service provider to get that education and support. Their provider should be able to answer all the questions that come to them and assist them, rather than going to their lead agency for CFSS questions. And then in addition, there's a group of people who are using the budget model, and they are people who have a parent of a minor or spouse that is their worker. The consultation service provider needs to do their worker evaluations for that small group, that population. So they have that duty as well. So like I said, I think this first year, what everybody is hearing is this creation of the service delivery plan, but they do have other duties that you'll start to see as CFSS, people begin to use CFSS more and really have that full year timeline with the provider.
Sure. I do hope there is some mechanism to audit these delivery plans to make sure they're really effective and useful.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. We'll talk about that. Thank you.
So there's a Aaron, there's a chat, a question in chat, or chat and questions area. Either way, about emailing referrals for the for a reassessment instead of faxing. And I know we have some lead agencies on the call. I don't, probably across the board, we can't say lead agencies have to do one thing or another, but I'm not sure what lead agencies are using, if they're using faxes primarily or an email box or what they are. So maybe one of the lead agencies can comment in the chat or ask to put their hand up so they can talk.
Okay, I don't see anyone writing anything more in the chat or have their hand up. So what we can do though is bring that back to our lead agency office hours, just to mention that it was brought up here at this meeting. And I certainly see that there was a comment, which makes sense, that this person likes to email because then they can copy the participant representative to that email, so they're included in the process and know that that reassessment and plan development would then be coming. So thank you for that information. It looks also here, Scott County has an intake inbox, and it looks like, you know, many comments saying many are accepting emails. And this somebody said working for an MCO that they often will use email. Looks like Dakota prefers via fax, but would support, or no, I'm sorry, just that they are receiving them via fax, but they would support email instead. Okay, so we'll bring that back to our lead agency office hours as well. So thank you for the comments and questions.
So Erin, there's also a question about it. Will DHS at some point provide a list of reimbursable trainings for the worker training and development budget? Currently, it seems at the discretion of the providing agency based off the client needs. So any worker training and development that is purchased as in the class really needs to be about the individual care and not something general. So it can't be like first aid because you want all your workers to understand first aid or something like that. It really needs to be something unique based on the person, the things that the person needs, as well as diagnosis and other things like that. So it's again, not general that you would want lots of people to learn, but it's really supposed to be specific to that person and that person's unique needs.
I see a comment just asking that we remind our consultation service providers that they list the correct NPI on the service delivery plan. Yes, we can go ahead and give that reminder at our next consultation services office hours. Okay, I see a comment about the lead agency addendum, which is the 6893W, and that the updated form looks like it is not allowing for CFSS extended units. Okay, let us take that comment back, and we'll just have to look at the form and just double check.
Just a second, Erin. What is it? It's the addendum.
Mm-hmm.
We wouldn't be putting extended units on there. That would be reflected in the support plan, the waiver support plan. What we have on our service delivery plan and on the addendum would be the state plan benefit units, and anything that's extended or waiver would appear on the service delivery plan.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
So I think this is from a provider point of view. So what should the next step be if the provider is seeing CPR or first aid being approved? I think if you see that it is approved, it should go back to the consultation service provider or lead agency and let them know that that training is not a covered service. Okay. And just a reminder, because it does seem like some of these questions are more for the trainings that we do at the office hours. So if we can keep the questions in the chat more kind of questions of, you know, what's DHS doing for the service, et cetera, like, you know, something more implementation council related rather than specific technical questions about CFSS. We're happy to answer those. It's just in a different format, and that should be at our office hours. Bear with us as we're just reading through some of the questions. I see a question that just says, would you direct attendees to the 2025 dates of the monthly targeted online meeting schedule? Can you clarify, are you asking for what, like a schedule or the links to join those meetings? And then maybe what provider type? Or if you're a person receiving services? Okay. Yes, we do have those scheduled. I'm just trying to think of how to get those out to this particular group. Okay, let me think about that. But yes, well, we can get that out to you. I just have to think about how to do that.
So Erin, there's a question about concerns about the ability for individuals to avoid gaps in services during renewal of CFSS services. Like CDCS, the plan can be backdated to the renewal date if needed, but in CFSS, there's no wiggle room for backdating. Is there any way that lead agencies can backdate to renewal on an as-needed basis to allow for no gaps? So we are talking about the process for CFSS. There are pieces of the process around in CDCS that won't work for CFSS. So we're talking about it. What we've said so far is what Erin shared, that we've talked to consultation providers to say, please start working, keep in mind when their reassessment is due, and start working with the person to review, like, how did the plan go this year? Are there things that would be changed? Come up with at least a skeleton plan of like what they, what they need. If they're already getting PERS, including PERS, any of those kinds of things to really be at the ready. We understand that lead agencies have 60 days to do the assessment, and they try to get that scheduled as early as possible. That doesn't always happen. So we are discussing what we could do in the meantime so people don't go without services. And we'll share that as soon as we get it nailed down.
Nathan, I see you raised your hand. Alan, are you able to unmute Nathan?
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Yeah, and that was my question that I'd put in there. You know, and just foreseeing this with a lot of stakeholders reporting that it just takes a long time to even get a meeting with consultation providers. And we do know that is a tight timeline during renewal process with the 60 days and making sure that, and then, you know, lead agencies do have 30 days to review the plan. And when you kind of put those all together, you may just be past that renewal date. And I think a lot of this comes from just capacity challenges, a number of people trying to access the service and consultation services, with how many providers they are. I definitely know you all are, you know, actively looking to add more consultation providers right now and are in the process. Appreciated. I just think that that's the concern, is that, you know, during this renewal, if there's any, you know, type of circumstance where, you know, there is like a 14-day grace period or something like that, for a renewal plan, initial, totally different. But for a renewal plan, someone going from an approved CFSS plan and then new assessment and then approval, all before that new start date. You know, I think most people who are transitioning at that 6-month mark may have a better, you know, understanding of CFSS at that point. But we are seeing a lot of individuals who may have an approved CFSS plan, and then within 60 days, they have to renew their plan again already. So I just have some concerns about the ability for not only consultation providers, but also lead agencies to meet that timeline. And I don't want capacity issues to be something that affects the person receiving services. I know there's lots of things with policies and that says we can or cannot do that, but just wanted to bring up the concern as you all work towards, you know, coming up with a plan over the next few months here.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate you explaining, and
Yeah.
we'll take all of that into consideration.
Yeah, appreciate it, Aaron. Thanks.
There's a question about if somebody, if there's a place where somebody can offer feedback, or so yes, you can send that to our CFSS email address, and that is right here on the shared screen. So that's dhs.cfss@state.mn.us. And if someone is unhappy with a provider, any provider type, they can certainly make those changes throughout the year. They are not required to stay with a certain provider once that selection's been made. They can switch providers and then and go with a provider that maybe better fits their needs. Okay, well, I'm not seeing any new questions here in the chat, so I think we'll be able to end just about 10 minutes early. Thank you all for coming. We will be back here, I believe it was December, I'm gonna go back one slide, December 9th. So we'll plan to see everybody then. Thank you.